So, instead of reviewing Transformers The Last Night, I'm going to be doing this video instead. I have been making YouTube videos for quite a long time now, and I never get a chance to talk about the Muppet movies. Now, just in case if you guys don't know this, but I'm sure a lot of you guys know this, but I love the Muppets. I am a huge fan of them. I've seen all the movies, I've seen the made-for-TV movies, I've seen the original show, I've seen Muppets Tonight, which is the one Muppet show from the 90s, and I've seen the Muppets, which is that one TV series on ABC where they had the Muppets, except it was like more for adults, and it was canceled after one season, which is complete bullcrap. So today in this video, I'm gonna be ranking all 8 theatrical Muppet movies. I'm not gonna be talking about the made-for-TV movies like The Muppets Wizard of Oz and It's a Very Merry Muppet Christmas Movie, because those don't count. Those were made-for-TV movies. I'm only doing the ranking of the 8 Muppet movies that came out in the theaters. Now, I like all of the Muppet movies. I don't think there is a terrible one. But if we're talking about made-for-TV movies, Muppets Wizard of Oz would be a terrible one. But anyway, so in my opinion, out of all the Muppet movies that came out in the theaters, none of them are terrible. I like them all. Some are better than others. Some are quite not as good as others, but I just like them all. But let's not waste any time. Let's start with number 8. And number 8 is Muppets from Space. Now, when Muppets from Space first came out in 1999, everyone hated it. They thought it was the worst Muppet movie ever made. Critics were kind of mixed on it, but audiences just ripped it apart. I mean, they didn't call it one of the worst movies ever made, but they thought it disrespected Jim Henson's legacy, and it totally just ripped apart the Muppets. But I honestly don't hate Muppets from Space. I think it's a pretty good movie. However, if I were to pick one Muppet movie to be my least favorite, it would be Muppets from Space. So the story of Muppets from Space is, it focuses on Gonzo, and he thinks he doesn't have a family, but he finds out eventually in the movie that he's an alien. But a lot of people thought this story was stupid, because if you guys know, in the previous Muppet movies and shows that came before Muppet from Space, no one knew what Gonzo was, and people just called him whatever. And honestly, I think Muppet from Space has a pretty decent story, but it kind of feels like fan fiction just a little bit. Now, Muppet from Space is a really funny movie. Like, I actually laugh at it a lot every time I watch it. It's a really funny movie, but the one problem that I have with Muppets from Space is it lacks the wit and charm that makes the Muppets just lovable. Now, don't get me wrong, I don't hate Muppets from Space at all. I don't think it's a terrible movie, but it's a good movie, don't get me wrong, but it just lacks just the wit and charm that makes people love the Muppets. Okay, let's move on to number 7. And number 7 is Muppet Treasure Island. So, just like with Muppets from Space, I don't hate Muppet Treasure Island. I think it's a good movie, but it has a lot of problems. So, after the success of The Muppet Christmas Carol, Disney decides to make another Muppet movie, but they decide to make it an adaptation of a classic story, and they picked Treasure Island. And honestly, the Muppets and Treasure Island really go well together. Like, it's a great concept. One of my favorite things about Muppet Treasure Island is Tim Curry. Tim Curry plays Long John Silver in this movie, and he nails it. Tim Curry he gives one of the best performances of his entire career in this movie. He works well with the Muppets. When Tim Curry and the Muppets are on screen together in this movie, it's fantastic. But the one issue that I have with Muppet Treasure Island, and it's my number one issue is it's a good movie, don't get me wrong, I really enjoy it, but it's just the pacing. There are a lot of boring spots in it. Like it's an hour and a half, but I think it could have been just a little bit shorter. Alright, let's move on to number 6. And number 6 is Muppets Most Wanted. Muppets Most Wanted was the last Muppet movie that came out, and a lot of people said it wasn't that great. It wasn't as good as like the other Muppet movies, but I really enjoyed it, but I can see why some people didn't like it though. So, in Muppets Most Wanted, the Muppets are on a world tour, but Kermit gets mixed up with this evil frog named Constantine, who looks e- exactly like him, except with his mole on his face. And while I did think it was a, a really funny story, I thought it was kind of a mix between Muppets Take Manhattan and The Great Muppet Caper. Muppets Most Wanted did have a ton of funny moments. Like, it is one of the funniest Muppet movies. And it had a great soundtrack. Like, for example, The Big House, I'm Number One, and we're doing a sequel. But it just, the thing that bothered me the most was the story. And while I did really enjoy the story, I thought it was hilarious. It kind of did confuse a lot of people, and it was kind of a mix between, like I said, Muppets Take Manhattan and Great Muppet Caper. Alright, let's move on to number 5. And number 5 is The Great Muppet Caper. The Great Muppet Caper. Okay, out of all the movies on this list, none of them have made me laugh harder than The Great Muppet Caper. I think The Great Muppet Caper is the funniest Muppet movie ever made. However, the one issue I have with The Great Muppet Caper is the story. Okay, so if you guys don't know what the story of The Great Muppet Caper is Kermit, Fozzie, and Gonzo are these newspaper reporters, and they're about to get fired, but in order to save their jobs, they have to go over to London to investigate this story about this criminal who's about to pull off this heist in which he steals this diamond that's called the baseball diamond, and it's shaped like the baseball diamond in like the stadiums. And it's a really funny story. Like, it's a great story, but the one issue that I have with it, it's a little unfocused. So kind of like Muppets Most Wanted. All right, let's move on to number 4. And number 4 is The Muppets Take Manhattan. I was gonna rank Great Muppet Caper over Muppets Take Manhattan, but in terms of which one is funnier, it'll be Great Muppet Caper, but in terms of which one has a more focused story, it'll be Muppets Take Manhattan. So, in Muppets Take Manhattan, the Muppets graduate from college and they decide to put on a show on Broadway, but that's when it gets really heartbreaking when they find out that they don't have enough money to put the show on Broadway, and that's when they have to split up and not be friends anymore. To quote Marty McFly from Back to the Future, "This is heavy." Yes, Muppets Take Manhattan has a very heavy story that's heartbreaking, funny, and, of course, heartwarming. And good God, the saying goodbye song sequence. It's so heartbreaking. If you thought the ending of Titanic was heartbreaking, no. Just wait until you watch the saying goodbye scene in Muppets Take Manhattan. Even if you're a grown man, you will cry. Alright, let's move on to number 3. And number 3 is The Muppet Christmas Carol. And yet, I know it's June, it's summertime, I shouldn't be talking about a Christmas movie during this time period, but screw it, whatever. And this may come to you guys as a shock, but I'm not a fan of the Christmas Carol story. I think it's boring, humorless, gray, and just sad, and it's just it just never hooked me. But the Muppet Christmas Carol is my favorite version of the story. I think it's better than the actual story, which is pretty obvious because I'm not a fan of it anyway. And Michael Caine. Okay, he plays Scrooge in this movie, and he knocks it out of the park. And I think out of all the Christmas Carol movies I've seen, Michael Caine might be my favorite Scrooge. He should have been nominated for an Oscar. So when it gets to Christmas time, I highly recommend watching Muppet Christmas Carol. It's funny, it's heartwarming, it's sweet, it's cute, great songs, just great story. Just watch it. You will like it. All right, let's move on to number 2, and number 2 is The Muppets. So, after Muppets from Space bombed at the box office, the Muppets eventually went to star in numerous TV movies like Muppets Wizard of Oz and It's a Very Merry Muppet Christmas Movie, but unfortunately, those TV movies did not do well with audiences, and eventually the Muppets just sort of went away, and they were pretty much dead, which was kind of sad. But then Disney and Jason Segel decide to bring the Muppets back in a reboot movie, and what else can I say about it? It is fantastic. When Disney first announced that they were making a new Muppet movie in 2011, I was so excited. Like, I could not wait to see this movie. And then I saw it, and I absolutely loved it. So, in the Muppets are separated. They haven't seen each other in years, and Jason Segel and Amy Adams are dating, and they're celebrating their 10th anniversary of dating. And that's when they decide to go to Los Angeles with Jason Segel's brother Walter, and Walter wants to see the Muppets, but that's when they learn that this evil oil tycoon named Tex Richmond, who is played by Chris Cooper, he wants to destroy the Muppet Theater because there's oil underneath, and that's when they decide to tell Kermit about what's going to happen to the theater, and that's when they decide to bring the Muppets back together, and they decide to do one more show and raise $10 million. Now, is the Muppets the best Muppet movie? No. However, do I still love it? Yes. I thought the Muppets did a great job being a love letter to the Muppets. It had great performances, great songs, a great story that's really sad, but it has a lot of funny moments. And if Jim Henson was still alive today, he would be so proud of this movie. All right, let's move on to number 1. And I'm sure I know what you guys know what number 1's gonna be. So my number 1 Muppet movie that I think is the best is The Muppet Movie. So, The Muppet Movie was the first Muppet movie ever to be released on the big screen, and it was released in 1979, and I can go on and on all day about how much I love this movie. The Muppet Movie is sort of a prequel about how the Muppets first met and how they went to Hollywood, and it's just a great story with great characters, great songs, and I think Rainbow Connection is the best song in Muppet history. And there's also a bunch of great funny celebrity cameos like Mel Brooks, Steve Martin. I can't name all of them because that would take forever. So if you guys haven't seen the Muppet movie, I recommend it, and I think it's the best Muppet movie ever made. Alright guys, that's it for my ranking of all 8 Muppet movies. And I have a question for you guys. Have you seen all the Muppet movies? How would you rank them? Which one do you think is the best? Which one do you think is the worst? Which one's your favorite? Which one's your least favorite? Whatever it is, comment below and let me know. And if you want to see more videos, just be sure to subscribe.